Good evening, Demon Field Comics in More, New Jersey. I am here with yet another interview this evening. Getting ready to have a good one tonight. Let's go ahead and get some people in here and let me know that you can see and hear me in the comments, if you will, please. And let's go ahead and start getting this bad boy shared out so we can get started here very shortly. Hope everyone has had a great day today. Been very productive. And if you haven't been that productive, at least have a great day at doing something. And while we're doing this, I'm working on my end, trying to get some things moved around as well. Had a very interesting day, actually. It was going to be a little bit slower day, and well, my days are just not turning out where they're slow anymore. So again, that's good because idle hands and the demon just do not go well together whatsoever. So again, if you will, if you are in the comments, let me know you can see and hear me over here. And please get this shared out, and we'll be getting ready to go in about another minute. Rob, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here, buddy. All right, let me go ahead and remove the banner on here real quick. All right, Demon Phil, Comics in More, New Jersey. We've got yet another interview for you this evening. I have had a string of some of the greatest interviews since I started doing this, and have had a blast doing this. So we're not going to, slow up the pace anytime soon. So tonight's interview is not going to be any different with that. Before I get started and get too involved in that, I want to go ahead and thank my sponsors on this one. So we have Totally Rad Comics, which is going to have Totally Rad Life of Violet, which launches June 16th on Kickstarter. Make sure you're there to go ahead and get that one. Sub-Zero Mission, as everyone knows, this is a big one for me. This is the one that actually saves lives by going ahead and going out in their area to go ahead and save the lives of homeless veterans that are out there by giving them the tools they need to survive the winter months. So this is a big one for me. If you do not know enough about this or want to know more, reach out to me and I will give you all the information you need to go ahead and help make a difference with them. Third Empire Banner is our next one that we got on here. Third Empire Banner has got Mojo Rising, which is going to be coming out on Tuesday of next week. So this time next week, we're going to have a launch party happening, and Mojo Rising is coming out. So get your mojo on. Codex Entertainment, we want to thank them as well. That is Lily the Demoness #4, which will be coming out July, which is coming up pretty soon, actually. I'm looking forward to that one. 183 Degree Studio, which is Kara Nicole and Alfred Trujillo. And right now they have Confessions of a Cosplay Diva that is on right now. If you have not gotten involved in that Kickstarter, please jump over there and get involved in that in any way possible. It is a great one to get into. Comic Art Groupies is another one that we have that's fairly new. Wendy Steen Shaner is the one who has that one, and I believe she has a Kickstarter that's coming up, I believe, in June or July. She'll correct me on that, I'm sure, at some point. But that one is coming up. Definitely keep your eyes and ears open for that one. And the final one, of course, and she is right up here in the corner, as you can see her right up there, Pantsless Pizza. Pantsless Pizza is our final sponsor that we have on here. A lot more information is going to be involved and revolving around that name as we go along. So keep your eyes and ears open because it's going to get fun around here. All right. That's our sponsors for right now. So they're all listed out there, and I am hydrated enough to go ahead and keep going. So tonight's guest is actually Tonk Kordos. Tonk Kordos is inker, illustrator, and has done quite a bit of work. I'm going to let him speak a little bit more about what he does instead of going ahead and taking all the spotlight from him. But we wanted to go ahead and get him in here, get his information out, and show some of the stuff that he has available and will have available. And of course, get your questions and everything ready on the side, and we'll go ahead and address those as we go along. So without further ado, here's Tony. Welcome to the
Phil.
show.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem at all. Now, for those of you that are out there that don't know who this is, Tony, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And where do we find you?
All right. Tonk Kordos. I am an inker, illustrator. I have worked for most of the major companies. You can find some of my ink work at DC on Justice League and Batman and Robin Eternal, Cyborg, Flash, Aquaman. I did the initial game release art for Marvel Legendary. That was with Upper Deck, so that was really cool. So the big tin box that had all the art in there, that one was me.
Nice.
What else have I done? Eternal Descent for IDW, Predators for Dark Horse, and thousands of covers and whatnot. And then working on a few of my own little side projects here at the house. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and even my website. It's all the same. It's Tonk Kordos Inking. And so just either enter that on Instagram, find me there, enter that on Facebook, find me there, put a .com at the end of it, you find me online. Super easy. Try to make it simple so I don't get lost trying to find myself. So.
That is important to make sure that you yourself do not get lost whenever you're setting all that up. Yes.
Exactly.
Now, we actually are going to be looking at the website here in a little bit. I want to go ahead and ask some questions leading up to that. So we'll get up to that point, and then I'll be sharing the screen and going through the website to kind of show some things that are on there. So first off, so how did you get your start in the industry and into all this?
Well, honestly, I kind of got started on a dare. It's a pretty decent story. I was at MegaCon Orlando years ago now. With my wife at the time, and we're walking around Artist Alley checking out the artists and stuff like that, and me being the cocky Italian that I am, I was like, oh, look at this, I could do this, I could do that, rah, 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 rah. Inking doesn't look that hard, I could blah, 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 and on and on and on. And yeah, as you can imagine, she got sick of hearing it, so she was like, why don't you just shut your mouth and prove it? So I was like, all right, challenge accepted, I'll do that. So I was bartending at the time, so in between working late nights and doing that, I'd come home, work on a portfolio, bang that out. And about a year and a half or so it took. And then I got my first gig working for a company called Big City. Did a few books for them, and then, eventually got my foot in the door with a couple other companies, IDW and Dark Horse. And then that led to the Marvel gig, the Legendary game, and then into DC, where I got to play with them for a few years and stuff like that. Got a couple of award nominations for my work with Paul Pelletier, so that was really cool. But yeah, I got into it on a dare. I always wanted to do it though. It was always something like when me and my friends would talk about it back in school. It was, oh, I could do this and I'll do that, and I'll be like, I'll ink it. Let me ink it. I was like, you put it on the paper, I will make it better. I don't want to deal with all the other stuff. Just let me make it better. So yeah, I always gravitated towards this anyway. So yeah, it was kind of a good challenge to have been given.
So what made you choose to do the inking instead of the pencils or the colors or anything like that? What made you choose just that one medium?
I didn't really want to. Penciling just seemed, it was too much. Like my art, when doing art, I like, it's relaxing for me. I can get into my own space, and penciling was, to me, it was stressful. You got to get your proportions right. You got to get perspective down. You got to get, this and that. And there's just so much stuff. And inking, I'm like, okay, the basics are there. The bones of the piece, even more than that, is all right there. And you want me to come in and just improve on it or make it, pop more, or, fix a few issues here and there, whatnot. And it's a little bit more technical, precision and stuff like that. And I was an engineering major before I decided to do the art route. So precision and technical is my gig. So I was like, I like doing this. I like being like, okay, this is what you gave me, this little sketch here, and now look, it's a full drawing. So I don't know. I like improving upon what's already thrown out there. And be like, we'll do it a little better here. Let me help you out. So.
And that is pretty cool, because as long it's the symmetry that works between the people that are doing that, because you can take something that is drawn really well and then create that epic status almost to it at that point, because you can actually take it to the next level just by inking it the correct way. On the flip side of that
Right.
coin, though, it can actually take it to where it was in a great level, and it can drop it down to good or not so good as well. So
Yeah.
there's different parameters on there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna throw any names out for guys who bring stuff down, but I mean, the guys who can take something that's already epic and like push it up even higher. I mean, the first name that pops to your mind is Scott Williams on Jim Lee. Jim Lee's pencils are phenomenal. They're,
Hmm.
they could probably go straight to color and print it if they really wanted to. And Scott just jumps it up even another level, and it's amazing to see the two side by side, and stuff like that. So yeah, the inker can help and can definitely hurt if you work with someone who doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, and you get
Hmm.
what is basically a tracer, because there are those out there, that doesn't bring anything extra to the work, so yeah, knowing what you're doing and knowing what you can bring in to make the piece better without losing too much integrity of the original artwork is definitely key.
Exactly, because you still want to keep. You just mentioned that about the integrity of the art, because you don't want to take something and change it up so much that it no longer has the original feel to it. You just want to give it that extra pop where, as soon as it reaches your hands and it's already there, it's like they can no longer live without having this piece in their hands and getting more of this.
Right, right. And you don't want to do a piece and then all of a sudden they not be able to recognize who the original artist was anymore. I've seen guys do that too. They're so heavy on their ink style that you can always pick out who inked it, but you can't necessarily tell who penciled it. You
Right.
know, so I try to keep the pencil integrity as much as I can, so that you can still know who was the penciler. Because each guys have their own specific little idiosyncrasies or quirks to their art and stuff like that. So figuring out what those little things are and making sure those stay intact when you do a piece, and accentuating the other parts of it is really the key to doing it.
Exactly.
Instead of just bulldozing through all one way or whatnot.
And that's one thing that, coming from outside of the industry, because I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I can't draw a stick figure straight. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So that's not my strength in this industry by any means. Yeah, if you ever wanted to cover from me, I'm sorry to burst your bubble on that one, but it's just not going to happen. But whenever I would go to my LCS, or whenever I would order, books or whatever, it was always the finished product that you would look at going, wow, this is great and this is really cool and everything. But then once you've actually been able to peek behind the curtain and see from pencils to inks to colors to, the whole line going through that, it amazes me how many changes can be made just from one level to the next. And
Oh
like
yeah.
we discussed, it can either make it much greater or much worse. And that's why you really have that symmetry on there. So I was going to ask the question, who have you worked with that you've had the most symmetry in working with their work?
Probably Paul Pelletier. Um,
Okay.
I've done my most work was with him. And,
Uh-oh, we're losing you.
we used to live like in person things, and I'm still here.
There we go.
Got me?
You had frozen up for a moment.
Okay. Well, I'm in Florida. We screw things up. But so Paul Pelletier, living like 10 minutes from me, was really helpful. He was like one of the main guys that I worked with for a while, and we could just get together real quick at the local comic shop and be like, oh yeah, I really liked what you did here. Can you work on this? Can we do this? And we developed a pretty good relationship to be able to, you know, he's like, look, just do this, do my faces. That was his thing. He's like, do the faces exactly how I do them. You don't need to accentuate them at all. He's like, the rest of it, have fun and play. And I was like, all right, cool. So that's what I would do. And then I'd play with this, and then he'd come back and he'd be like, I love the way you do hair. Don't change it. Do hair like that all the time. I don't care what I put on the paper, or hey, I really like the textures here and there, whatnot. So, knowing what your penciler likes and having a good rapport with them, being able to talk and take constructive criticism back and forth is really key to developing that link with each other, you know. So that was, yeah, I think Paul would definitely be the top guy for me.
Very cool. Now, let me ask you this: out of the stuff that you've done, because I know you've done quite a bit, and it's really cool to see. And we're still going to get into your website to look at some things. What is your favorite piece that you've ever worked on?
Hmm. Well, that's hard. um, it probably the first Justice League cover I worked on. That might be my favorite. One of the first two. I did two, three. I don't know. One of the first two is definitely my favorites. I remember the first one I did it. I was really nervous too. I'd already been working for a while, but then you get a Justice League and you're like, oh, and it had all the members on there, all the main guys, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Cyborg, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Flash. Everybody was on there, and Robin. Like, boom. And then they were fighting up against these like cyborg dog dragon things, and I was like, "This is so cool! It's like a whole big team fighting, and I can do textures with these dragon doggy thingies and all that." And I had so much fun. And then the next one I got to do, it had all the characters on it, and in the center was Jessica Cruz, the new Green Lantern, and she was like reaching out for her ring. And the piece was completely different than the one before, where this one, it was more about the starkness of the piece. There was a lot of blank space in it and a lot of just shadowed area, like almost silhouetted and stuff. And it was completely different than the one before, but it stands out like it's just like a pow, is in your face type of piece. I think that's the one cover I still own. I haven't sold or tried to sell yet, really, because I put a price tag on it that nobody will pay. Yeah. So that's how you keep your art. But
Exactly.
yeah, so that's I really like that one too, because I really like stuff that kind of pops and stands out with the stark contrast and things. So I'm really happy with that piece.
Very cool. Now I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen, and we're gonna go to your website, and I'm gonna get you to kind of talk about it as I go through and scroll.
Oh, ready?
So let me bring this up. So bear with me just a moment. All right, so it should be on the screen now.
Hey,
So here
yeah,
is
I know that
your
website.
print store.
Yeah.
Can you see it over
All
there?
right. Cool.
Okay.
Yep, I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the top here, the first things I have, I actually have two bundles that I do, because I did a couple different sets. Um, as you can see, most of the pictures on there are Star Wars characters, bad guys, of course, and half their faces are skulls, or their skulls are incorporated somewhere into the piece, like with the Boba Fett. Um, it's just the things that I've been doing a lot lately. I've been doing a lot of skull work because it's fun to play with the textures of the bone and stuff like that. And I've really been getting into it. So the first two things up there, the first one is, a bundle set for all 9 pieces. Uh, so it's a pretty good deal. The prints are normally 20 and you get all 9 for 150. So,
And if you
knock
look at the
off
detail on here, let me
decent
show
amount
you.
there.
That's what we're talking about, having the skull on
Yeah.
there. I mean,
The Dark Hall.
yeah, it's that is sick.
Yeah, and these pieces here, the skull pieces, I did all the pencil work and the color work on them as well, which is why one of my hashtags that I tend to use on Instagram is not just an inker. Um, and then I got the Ninja Turtle set as well, but the Boba Fett, his skull's inside his glass area there, which is cool. I had printed out, and I'm gonna get some more as soon as I can. The Boba Fett especially, I printed it on canvas, like stretched
Mhm.
canvas, and I had put liquid glass where the glass should be, so it gave a real glossy effect to it, and you could
Nice.
still see the skull underneath because it's clear. Yeah, it was really cool. I had that for New York Comic Con last year, so whenever conventions get back to going again, I'll probably start bringing in canvases again as well.
Now, I wanted to show
So as
before
you
we get
scroll
into the
down,
Ninja Turtles, let me show real quick
yeah,
on this, because this actually caught my eye whenever I was going through here, because you've got the Sith Lords, There you go.
Oh yes.
And it is just
Uh,
that is a ton of
yeah.
detail that's coming out of that.
So we had to pick a Sith guy from each generation. So Maul obviously was very, he was the guy who I think out of the prequels, the one that stood out the most to everybody. He's the one
Mhm.
everyone remembers. Even though he was only in it for like half a movie. And then of course Vader, he's the big bad guy, as always. And I figured, Kylo, even though he's a little emo punk, we'll still throw him in there at the end. So that was a fun piece to do. I really enjoyed doing it. We did it full size 213, 11 by 17
Yeah.
artboards. So it was huge when it was finished.
Now, whenever you get into the Ninja
Now
Turtle
we're good
stuff, I
at it.
remember
Got
you
in more
showing,
Ninja Turtle.
yeah, Rocksteady and Bebop. I remember whenever I saw this at the online con, whenever I was there doing that, that was,
Right.
I mean, just look at the amount of detail that's involved in this. That is amazing, and they are
Yeah.
they're connecting prints, if
I
I'm not
like the
mistaken.
Rocksteady ones. They are not actually. I wish they were. I didn't have enough forward thinking on that one to do that.
Okay.
Um, Sadly, yeah. They look like it though, because the turtles themselves and
Right.
Splinter all have the pipe work, the sewer work behind them and everything, but they actually don't connect up. Because these pieces here, I was the inker and the colorist, and it was actually just different pencilers on all of them. So
Hmm.
the reason I did everything was so that there was a uniformity to it, in the style of the feathering and cross hatching and whatnot. This is actually probably my favorite one is the Rocksteady. I love how he came out. He's just gnarly looking.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got a ton of depth to it. I mean, this is not a two-dimensional page that I'm looking at. This is a whole mess of depth that's been put on there strictly by the inks.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate that.
And then, of course, you get the turtles and everything on here,
Raphael's
which,
pretty awesome. That's one of my favorites.
yeah.
Really love how he came out too.
And it's not just the turtles, like the turtle, like you got on here. Let
Yeah.
me show real quick. You've got, let me see if I can get it real quick. The back of his shell here, how much detail's on there. But you've also got
Mm-hmm.
down here at the
Yeah.
bottom where the pipe is. I don't want to go over there because
Yeah.
that gets way too motion sickness going on through this. But the pipe, how much detail is on there showing the weathering of the pipe? That is amazing.
It's funny. I look back at the pipes now, and I'm like, oh my god, what was I thinking? Because I mean, all the lines, I got them pretty much all the same distance apart, and they're small. And it's just, I must have gotten into such a groove that I wasn't even paying attention, because I look at it now and go, that's insane. Why would I have done? Oh my goodness!
Right.
But it came out so well. I can't complain about it, and I don't care. I'll be cocky about it. That's fucking awesome. Ooh, drop the. I apologize. That was really awesome. So
Now, of course, you've
what
got
else we got here?
the turtles and stuff. So then we go to Anti-Venom Black Cat. Caught my eye on that. I wonder why.
Catches a lot of people's eyes. Yeah, these were. I think this piece. Well, this piece here, I worked with my buddy Javier Vila. He did the pencil work for me on it. We had already done the Venom and Gwen and the Carnage MJ piece. They were commissions for somebody, and I was like, we need a third one. I was like, let's do Black Cat and Anti Venom, and he was down for it. So we banged that one out, and then did them as a set. The three, because it's like Spider-Man's three loves. Black Cat, MJ, and Gwen.
Now, I will say
this one.
This one is my favorite, and this one's been my favorite since you showed it at the con. Because that is the absolute truth. Because if I don't have my coffee, people die.
That makes me so happy, because this was my idea and my concept from start to finish. I don't know where it came from. I just was like, everyone talks about how much they love coffee and this, that. So I was like, I was into skulls at the time, still doing skulls and stuff. And I was like, what if the steam revealed the face, life underneath the skull and stuff. And I don't know, I really enjoy this piece, and I'm glad that you love it. And I've actually got a lot of good feedback from it too. I kind of want to do a a companion piece for it and do a Whiskey is Life
Nice.
one as well. So how that works.
Now, I wanted to point out the reflection pieces that you've got on here because I just wanted to show a couple of those because these are really, really cool. So you've got this piece here, which is your full color, which is very nice. Whenever you look at it, you're like, okay, that is amazing on how much detail is involved in there and how much contrast and how you can really tell where the mirror begins and ends, which is hard to do, especially whenever you're dealing with, that much light coming off of it and all from her powers and everything.
Right.
But what got me is this one. If you want to go ahead and explain, just kind of explain why you went with the grayscale, because that is cool.
So, the grayscale scale stuff, it originated with the Ninja Turtle pieces. Throwing the single pop of color in with those pieces, I decided to kind of bring that through into some of the newer stuff that I was doing too, and see how people reacted to it. Instead of doing just the black line work and then a color spot, I was like, let's take the full color, gray out most of it, and do color just on one area that I want to be hyper focused on. And so that's how those came about. And everyone's received it really well. And they it's funny, they tend to gravitate towards the gray scales with the pop of colors more than the full color pieces. So I can't complain that, because my little idea is working.
Well, I know, speaking from my perspective on what I like and everything, the color is great and everything, but the color is something that you see a lot of places, the full color, and they really just draw your attention, that kind of thing. The fact that you go with the grayscale and then it gravitates toward a little bit of the color that's kind of mixed in there, it's just enough to get your attention. It's not enough to take away from the full aspect of what you're looking at, and I like that. Like, take this piece right here with flash and reverse flash on there. And it's really cool how not only you did that with the colors, but you did it with the reverse colors to go ahead and really accent what was going on. So it's like good versus evil in just color form with a gray background. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. They really look. I like them, and part of it, like I said, the Ninja Turtle stuff was really popping out. So I was like, okay, let's do some more of this stuff, and I realized that a lot of the grayscale things, that's what's drawing people's attention over to my, it at the conventions, it's it's color, gray with a little bit of color. Hey, what's this? It's a way, it helps me stand out a little bit too. So it gives me a little bit more, recognition difference amongst all the other sea of artists out there. So you gotta find ways to stand out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does. It makes it stand out quite a bit. It gives you a totally the style that stands out of here. You can definitely pick your table out of a con. If we were going to a con and I saw these kind of out behind the table or whatever, I would know that that's actually your area.
Perfect, man. That's exactly what I'm going for. I love these pieces. The Pennywise pieces are some of my favorites.
Yeah, that's the Pennywise old, and this is the Pennywise new. And even the skulls you've changed up on there because they're not the same kind of skulls.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
they love it. They're like, oh, this is awesome. I can't have this in my house. But it catches everyone's attention. So I'm like, all right, that's fine too. I don't mind.
I mean, there is so much to go through on here. So you definitely want to go through and look at the website and see all the different things that are on there. And that right there is just that's just the prints. He's also got original art on there, which is amazing. So I mean, there's all kinds of things to go through on there.
Some of the original art from a lot of the prints is still in there. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm gonna be uploading like my original sequential pages from whatever I have left, really. There's a lot of it's Cyborg. There's some Justice League stuff left, and whatnot. So I'm going to upload a lot of that as well. A lot of covers from the different indie books that I've done that I have the artwork for. So, and then, like I'd like to do, I kind of fell out of it, but I was doing like a toss-up Tuesday thing every Tuesday, and I was throwing out like 2 things, pick between this and this, and whichever wins, I was doing like a quick drawing of that week to post back
Nice.
up. Kind of fell out of that a little bit. COVID screwed up my whole schedule and everything, but I'll get back to that here soon and start doing that again, because that was kind of fun. I liked it. Gave me challenges that I wouldn't normally do, so like I think the first thing was between a wizard and a knight in the wizard one, so I drew a squizzard. It was a squid wizard, for just why not? Nobody specified what kind of wizard I had to do.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Now, I
little
will
things
say
like
that Joseph Bruno's in here. He said it is definitely special. Now, Joseph Bruno is actually a photographer and has his own gallery, not too far from where I live. So him saying that, he's definitely seeing some serious talent behind that. And it is true, because you've got a great style. Not only that, but I mean, it really pops and speaks to you whenever you have that. So that'd be something I could definitely see in a gallery form.
Wow. I've kind of been thinking about doing, a little bit more. Well, the Coffee is Life is more of a fine art piece, compared to the comic book stuff that I do. So I've been thinking about that and maybe doing something a little more fine artish. The one piece that's not on there that I love, and I don't have it on the website because I haven't figured out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it yet. I think you've seen it though. Is the Grim Reaper blowing the bubble?
Yes.
That piece is I want to. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that one yet, because it's actually not sized well
Right.
to go onto like a 11 by 17 or something like that. So I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that one just yet. I've done a couple little things with that. I've gotten it on like little canvases before, and they went pretty well. But yeah, I love that guy. Actually,
Now, as I recall, wasn't that was a piece that you were using, that you were thinking about doing some kind of an art book with that?
Yeah. I'm still in the works on that one. I've got 3 pieces done for it so far. So working my way to that way. Commissions kind of came in, and so I'm like, okay, commission work time. Those.
Oh darn, got to make money.
yeah. But I'll definitely be getting back into that one too, because I think that's something that's gonna, when I get finished, it's gonna come out really cool.
Yeah, I want one.
If I don't put a lot of words to it, it should tell a story.
When we discussed about that, exactly, because whenever we discussed about that at the con, I was going nuts over on the side, because everyone else that doesn't know what's going on with this, I wish we had the piece to show you, but basically there's a Grim Reaper, and everywhere the bubbles. Okay, go right ahead.
I'm sure it's
everywhere that there's bubbles going, it shows the death that happens in the background. So there's life everywhere, but everywhere the bubbles kind of show that perspective of death in the background. It is an amazing looking piece. And what he's thinking about doing is doing an entire art book that everywhere the bubbles hit on all kinds of different things, it shows the change like that. And I'm about to give him full screen. Hang on a sec.
There he is.
There we go.
There's the Grim Reaper. Yeah. So that's him blowing his bubble.
Yep.
Story for him is that he was trying to appeal to a younger generation, not be so scary. So he decided to blow bubbles now instead of have his scythe. And then the one of the pieces that I did for it, where the bubbles pass over.
Yes.
There we go. You see the quote unquote death below.
Yep.
So yeah. This kind of probably an art book, mostly of those type of images and whatnot.
And it's
put it all together.
a unique idea because, where the bubbles touch, it shows the depth below, like you're talking about. And whenever you were showing a couple of those pieces at the con, my jaw was on the ground because I was like, wait a minute, I've never even heard of anything like this before. So it was very cool to see something totally different. And whenever you mentioned, because I remember you said, I don't know, maybe I'll do a book for it later on. I was like, oh yeah, you have to now.
Yeah, the decision was made for me. That I have to do that. So, but yeah, that's I have a lot of really cool ideas for it too. Like beyond just the cutesy animals and stuff like that. I think I might have mentioned one that during the con, of a soldier firing off
Hmm.
a bunch of bullets,
Yep.
and only certain bullets would have the bubbles because each bubble, you know, has a specific target. So there's no bubble out there that doesn't have a target. So it's not just going to be random,
Right.
whatnot. So yeah,
And not every
yeah,
bullet will
definitely.
actually hit its mark. That's what you said on there too, because you
Exactly.
said, you can fire off an entire round, or a magazine, whatever, and all of a sudden, not every single one of them is going to have death attached to it, because some of them are going to hit in the wood behind or the ground or whatever. But it's really
Yep.
cool that certain ones are going to have that where you can actually see through it. That is amazing to me.
Yeah. So that's yeah, it's gonna be fun. I really dig into the bones of the project. It's gonna be bones puns. Uh, it's it should be pretty fun. Come out, nice, interesting book. Hopefully, something brand new that no one's really seen before.
I
And
completely agree. And that is something that definitely has to happen. I mean, I've already said it before, and I know you're already getting some people over in the audience that are excited about it. And everyone who is not able to watch right now is going to watch later on. I know they're going to say the same thing. So it has to happen. And whenever it does, we're going to be there ready to support you on that. And then go ahead and hit the share button and get that thing around, because that is a very cool book to have.
oh, awesome. Yeah, I definitely will appreciate that. And I'll be sure to make sure everyone knows. Let all you guys know when it's coming to fruition and whatnot, and however I'm going to be able to print it out and get it distributed out to everybody and stuff. So
Exactly.
hopefully I can get. I'd like to have it done this year. So if I can make that happen, I definitely will. So
Oh, we'll definitely be looking for it. Trust me. Now,
yay, Death Bubble.
what has been your most challenging request that you've gotten for a commission piece?
The most challenging. Hmm. I think the most challenging things that I get are the pieces that like are very, very loose. Like I like it a little loose so I can, accentuate things and whatnot. But when stuff is like nothing more than really a rough pencil thumbnail, I find that intimidating, I guess, because then I was like, now I got to pencil stuff, and I was like, and penciling makes me stress out as it is, and I was like, uh, so those are the things that kind of stress me. I had to ink two Frank Miller blank cover sketches in the past, and if you've ever seen Frank's pencils, it's like nothing there really. It's a very loose, bare, image of what you're supposed to be doing, and so those were kind of intimidating to do that. Bye, Ed.
Just, yeah, just letting Ed know.
Um, so, but a lot of guys are like, oh no, the ones with all the details and the tiny. No, I love those, man. I'll dig into that, and I'll pull detail out and I'll throw textures in everywhere, and that's fun. But the stuff that you have to almost, well, not even almost, actually finish the drawing is kind of, it's not as fun, because I gotta think about it, and then I start worrying that my penciling style isn't going to fit with that, and then I have to ink on top of it, and yeah, I don't like doing those.
Just makes it more stressful at that point.
It does. Not a fan.
Now,
I do this to relax.
what was the that moment in your career, that pivotal moment, whenever you knew that you had actually made it into the industry and you were making your mark?
Well, the moment I knew I made it in, uh, was when I got the call from DC, which was actually pretty funny because before I heard from an editor, the I guess the legal guys or the accounting guys, one of those guys was like, "Hey, look, okay, so we just need to tell you can't do this, da 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 da." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Has no one told you yet?" And I was like, "Told me what?" And they're like, "Oh, you're going to be working on this. You have a job." I was like, "Oh, fantastic!" So that was like when I knew I made it. As for making a mark, though, I think the first time I realized that was, when I got my first Inkwell nomination. Um, people have actually noticed the work and stuff. So at that point, I was like, okay, all my cockiness is actually paying off, or is accurate. It's not cocky anymore. Now it's confidence. I've shown that I can do what I say I can do. So that's probably when I realized, okay, yeah, I'm coming along well with this here. So
Very nice. Now, I've got a question out here from the audience. I'm going to bring up here in just a moment, but I want to give the wrong answer first
oh
because the question here, let me go ahead and bring this up. I got here late, but what does an inker do? Do you get a framework and work for that? So I want to give the wrong answer first. Inking is not tracing. I just want to go ahead and throw that out there so that everybody knows it is not simple tracing. I have had other people who have been on panels and whatnot that I'm not going to go into great detail on what was going on with that, but there was a whole lot of talk about inking is nothing more than tracing. Now, you can go ahead and explain, if you will, what inking is now, but I wanted to give the wrong answer first because I don't want anybody to sit up here getting that idea.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, inking definitely is not tracing. If that's all the inker is doing, they're not an inker. They're a tracer, and they're not bringing anything to the artwork. So what I do is, what'll happen is I will get either the original artwork, pencil work, or a scan. More likely now, they send scans of the artwork and print it out. So I'll have the original artwork that the penciler drew out and everything, and it's my job to, I go over some of those lines line for line, like with faces and stuff like that, things that are highly detailed that they spend a lot of time on. They want them to look exactly how they imagine them, and how they produce them. But then a lot of the other stuff, it's up to me or the other inkers, whoever, to bring in the depth, make sure that that image is as three-dimensional as we can make it in black and white form. So therefore, if the figure work that's in the foreground doesn't have a heavy outline on it, we need to thicken that up. If the ones in the back are the same thickness as the ones in the middle ground, we have to lighten those up. Make sure we do them thinner. We add textures to things. It's not all, the pencilers don't always go through all that because they're just working with the pencils. Whereas once I put down the ink, I can add in white paint afterwards, which I do a lot, to just create more depth into pieces, or to, if it's in an alleyway, some paint splattered, some black ink splattered and some white ink splattered. It really makes a gritty, for a gritty alleyway and whatnot. So our job is to create the depth, add as much texture as needed, because you can overdo it. I've been known to overdo it occasionally, but and make sure your light sources are right. That's a big thing that people don't realize too. Is sometimes, and I've been guilty of it. Guys who are drawing the pages, they get caught up and they're just like, "Oh, it looks awesome," and you go and you actually look at it, and there's like 6 light sources, and you're like, "Okay, we can't have this many. It's going to come from here. It's going to come from here. So let's, we got to trim it down a little bit and whatnot." So yeah, I mean, fix it, mistakes that may be overlooked or whatnot. So yeah, they give you a skeleton, you flesh it out, give it dimension. Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they give us a more defined skeleton per se. Sometimes it's a little looser. It all depends on which artist, which pencil you're working with. We mentioned earlier, Jim Lee, his pencils look great as is. Scott Williams adds even more to it. It's amazing. If you've seen Mark Silvestri's pencils, on the other hand, they are super loose.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny Mickey, no, not Mickey, I'm sorry, Joe Weems fantastic. He finishes the pencils basically and inks all at the same time. So really, every artist is different depending on how much they bring to the table. The guys that I worked with the most, Paul Pelletier, his work looks like it could be just sent straight to colors, to the naked eye, or to, someone who hasn't really like delved into, the industry so much. To me, I look and I go, okay, well, I can see we can make these lines need to be better, these straighter, this needs to be added here, we need texture here, we're going to add a little more depth to the hair here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So for me, I can see all the little things that I want to add in to make the piece really stand out. That way, my philosophy as the inker is, if we need to print this without colors, it should look right. The colors are an added bonus to me. So even though most comics are printed in color, but if I did my job right, you can see the depth, you can see the textures and everything, without the colors put in.
Mm-hmm.
If I did it right, my line work will convey that illusion on the paper that it is a three-dimensional image coming out at you. So
Which makes complete and total sense, yes.
What I do.
And that's why with especially the horror books, that they actually prefer it to be black and white, so that it has that extra depth that you can see without color, because that the way you're not your eyes aren't drifting to anything else too fast. You're having to go in the stages that they want you to go panel by panel on there, because it gets that. It's the same thing as watching a horror movie. It gets you in that zone, so you don't know what's going to jump out at you until it happens on there, and it's too late by then.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. Everyone loves the colors stuff, comic books, but I've done a couple books where the colors have actually taken away. Like I'll look at it and go, okay, so all the detail I put right there is now gone because you oversaturated it, so now you can't see anything that I did, so now I'm like, okay, well, and then you get colorists who know how to accentuate the line work properly and stuff, and it makes a world difference. It's like, just same thing with inkers. A bad inker can destroy fantastic pencils. A good inker can bring fantastic pencils to the next level. Same thing with the colorist. Colors can destroy, an inker's work, to where you don't see all the details that we put in because they've like just completely taken over with all their stuff and whatnot. So it's definitely a balance work with the team, working together to try and make the perfect look for each page and the book itself.
I completely agree on that. I mean, you have to have that symmetry. If you don't have that symmetry, then you can actually tell on the page where it looks like pencils, inks, and colors are almost fighting it out for the panel, and it just doesn't work right.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that before. Like I said, guys who are just like, they're gonna do what they do. It doesn't matter who they're working over. They just bulldoze through because this is the way I do it. This is my style. Some pencilers don't care. Some inkers don't care. Me personally, like I said, I want you to know who the penciler was by looking at the art. You can be like, oh yeah, this guy did this piece. It looks a little different, but I can tell it's him, instead of going, well, that's Tony who inked it, but I have no idea who did the pencils on it. And you realize, oh, that was Finch. And you're going, how do you not recognize Finch artwork? You just screwed up bad as the inker at that point.
So, that is very true. Now, Russell put on here, I love pencil and inked works. I have had a few commissions done that I wish I had left without color. And that is true. There are some that you really want to have without cover, just to have that raw feel of what was done with the pencils and inks on there. Again, so the color doesn't take away from that raw feel. I mean, I'm not saying the color is a bad thing. Don't take me wrong on that, because eventually I'm going to have some colorists on here, and I don't want them to not show up now. But there is a raw feel. Yeah, there is a raw feel that you get from pencils and inks on there, and it does change things whenever you have the color on there. It gives it more of an easygoing, this is done, and I'm able to see it, and it's pretty, and it's nice to look at and everything. But that raw feel is like, you went from a blank page to this. That's just amazing whenever you look at that.
Right. Yeah. It definitely kind of gives it a more sleek look to it. It's more finished, like you said. And to your point there, Russell, wishing you had done it without the color. I know a lot of guys who, a lot of my commission work lately, especially, is me working over scanned copies of people's art, because they want to keep the pencils
Mm-hmm.
and they want to display the inks next to the pencils, and then they'll have somebody digitally color it or hand color it, whatever, and they'll do that on a copy of my inks so
Yep.
that they can display the whole process together. And that's become actually quite popular here recently in the past 10 years or so.
Oh yeah.
People have been starting to do that even more often now. So I have a couple of clients that's how they do it. They're like, I'll send you the scans, you can work on the scans. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine with me. It's less messy that way, actually, because pencil gets all over your arms and
Now,
but
what is
yeah,
some of
man.
the best advice that you've ever been given in the industry?
um don't miss a deadline. And take advice from everybody. For a while, I was only going to pencilers and seeing what they thought and whatnot. I was like, wouldn't it be weird to go to an inker and be like, hey, look at my stuff, I'm your competition. And they're like, no, do that. Go to colorists and ask them what they think of your work. How would you feel if I handed this to you? Would you be able to work with this? And be able to take constructive criticism. Uh, it's not an attack against you. It's not an attack on your art. It's, hey, this is cool, but these are some areas you need to work on. Try this, try that. Most people in the industry are, if you show them something, they're more than willing to talk it, and help people out and give you advice and stuff like that. Like, I love doing this. One of my favorite things to do at cons is when people bring up art portfolios, when our kids come up and they're like, I want to learn how to draw. I'm like, all right, come on behind the table, let's do this. um, I'm always doing that. And then the other things, two things that or I think are most important is for people who draw, the pencilers, and I've learned it myself more recently, is you have to draw from life. You can't draw from images on the computer screen. um, yeah, it looks three-dimensional, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing a person sitting in a chair live versus drawing a person sitting in a chair on the computer screen, completely different.
Mm-hmm.
It's two totally different pictures, and I guarantee they're going to come out completely different. It could be the
Mm-hmm.
same person, it's not going to look the same, because you're gonna see a lot more depth in real life than you will on that two-dimensional screen. Um, so always, if you can draw it from life, draw it from life. And then the other thing is, draw every day. You have to draw every day. You have to do something artistic every day. I mean, if you're on vacation at Disney World or something, hard to draw. But if you're at home, every day, draw. I usually have a little pad with me, so if I get an idea, I can at least sketch it out on a pad, and it's just a little pocketbook thing, and that and that's why I tell everyone that. I was like, always have something with you. Have some type of sketch pad with you, even if it's a tiny little thing, and just sketching it. You're going to be sitting somewhere at some point, not moving. Take 3 minutes and draw the person standing next to you. It's just, you have to draw daily. It's a skill, and you have to learn it. You have to embrace it and feed it for it to really blossom into a full potential.
Exactly. Now, you're talking about doing this daily and everything, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up your website while we're talking about this so that people can go look. The links are actually attached to both YouTube and Facebook. So up in the top up there, you can actually go in there and click directly in to go look at it. So if you want to go look at it while we're talking, you're more than welcome to do so. But I wanted to ask, what do you use to inspire you while you're drawing? Is there a certain music or movies or TV shows or a certain noise that you have going on?
uh well, it depends on the mood, obviously. Because sometimes TV is very distracting. There are certain shows or movies I can watch or listen to, and I've seen them so many times now that I can just listen to them. I know exactly what's going on.
Hmm.
So I do that occasionally. Usually it's like House. I've watched House so many times that I know, or Star Wars. I know Star Wars. You know, um, besides that, I listen to a lot of music, and it's a wide variety. I got everything from Garth Brooks to Slipknot to Eminem to uh, the Book of Mormon soundtrack. So I mean, it's just a huge variety. So there's always something mixing in. And then the other thing that I've done occasionally that I like, and I'll probably be doing a little bit more of, is I've been listening to books on tape. And I listened to like an entire 9-book series, and it was cool. Like I sat at the art desk and was just like, didn't even realize how much time had passed, because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this story, and in my head I'm just listening to it and I'm working, and next thing I know I'm like, maybe I should eat. I've been sitting here for 6 hours, So I guess that's what's inspired, but that just kind of keeps my mind working, because like most artists, I have a touch of ADHD, and so my mind is constantly 6,000 places at one time. And if I'm just sat here quiet and left to my own devices, that would be terrible.
Yes.
Yes, countries would burn and children would cry. So yeah, I gotta have other stuff that's filling the void, so that I'm not just inside the brain drifting off into the madness. So find whatever can keep that inner brain occupied and let you focus on your artwork is key. And for me, it's a wide variety of things, so yeah, there's no one simple answer for that.
Now we know that, of course, the art book is going to be coming out, because that's a have to. We've already discussed that, and that's like locked in. If I could lock you into a date, I would definitely do that to make sure that we have it done by a certain time. But at least we got an answer that's going to be going. It's going to be in the process, so we're good.
Yeah.
What else do you have going? What else is next for you?
Well, I want to do, and I've started on this one as well, because like I said, as artists, we're ADHD. We got 6,000 things going in our heads. So I've started work on a deck of playing cards that I've been designing. And since we all know that Tony loves to do skull work, it's going to be a skull-based deck of cards. So once I get the artwork for that finished up, I've already looked into the printing process and how much that's going to cost and whatnot. I'll probably Kickstarter it, and whatnot, and I'll offer up some of the original skull artwork. Will be some of the I guess what do you call them?
The tiers.
Yeah, some of the tiers for people and whatnot. I have a couple of stretch goals in mind as well, in case we do really well, which would be great. But the basic set, it's going to be skull based, and I think it's going to be kind of cool. I'm fleshing it out, and the only thing that's been giving me issues, I'll be honest, is what to do with the jack. Like king, queen, easy, got it. Ace, sure. The jack, I'm like, what is the jack? I mean, he's not the jester. He's not necessarily the knight. He's who the hell is Jack?
Almost like a
the
prince.
The prince, yeah.
I mean, that could be worked with at least.
So I'm I don't know. Each Jack, maybe each Jack will be different. Maybe one Jack will be a knight, one Jack will be a wizard or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Depending on how that goes, though, I might do another playing card set. I have a couple ideas for some, like a mythology-based one and whatnot. So we'll see. But I want to do that one. That'll be fun. It shouldn't take too long to do. I just have to do, skulls. That's easy. Knock those out.
And skulls are pretty popular, so I don't think you're gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah. So, besides that, what else we got going on? I'm writing my story still. In fact, I just started talking to somebody else about it, who writes, and they want to offer up a little bit of help, because I've hit a block. I apparently can't figure out what I'm doing now. But that should be pretty cool. And that book, It's great. I don't think I said anything about it during the con because I was like, no, I can't really say nothing without giving it away. But so I'm going to tell a little bit because otherwise you're just like, yeah, you're talking. Um, the idea came to me. We were in New York for New York Comic Con, and we were walking around Central Park, and we had come across this little gazebo out there right on like the river or creek or whatever that is inside the park. And the top of the water had like this green film over it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy because like I'm looking at going, we're right here, and just below that green film is a completely different world. It's like you see water before and you're like, oh yeah, it's a different world underneath, but you can't see it because of this film that's there. And I had a stick and I was like, if you just pierce the veil a little bit, you can and it gave me this idea for this story based on another world. And the book itself and the alternate world, it's called The Pretty. And so it's going to be an adventure with some kids that end up traveling over there and having to save that particular world, just through circumstance, really, more than anything else. And that's all I'm going to give you on that one for right now. So that's what do we got here? Jack as a skull, Jack the Ripper, Jack as a skull, Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack Skellington, Jack Daniels. I like the Jack Daniels. It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Russell is a jack of all trades. He has all kinds of answers for things.
Puns. My daughter watches this. She's gonna love it. She's a pun fanatic. But yeah, so that's that story. And then I don't know if I had mentioned the other one. I want to do something a little cartoony, a little more of a comedic. It's called The Devil's Day Off. So it's what happens on his days off. What's he do? He gets one day off, every 666 Mondays. He gets a day off. It's always a Monday because those are always the worst days. So obviously that's the day the devil's off roaming around the city, is doing whatever he wants to do. Why are the polar ice caps melting? Well, the exit from hell. He's really hot. He goes out to the North Pole or the South Pole. He sits there on a beach chair with a martini, and the heat radiating off him is what's melting the polar ice caps. So silly stuff like that going on in the book. Like the entrance to hell is going to be through It's a Small World. Obviously not that one. But, it's a tiny planet or something. I don't know. I'll think of a cool name for it. So little things like that, just tongue-in-cheek stuff. He's going to be a bird at some point and just be taking poops on people's cars as they come out of the car wash. Just little things. That lady at the drugstore that's paying for everything with pennies. He's just going to cause a hassle. And then, so it should be pretty fun. A lot of comedy in that one, but yeah, so I got a few things up in here that are worming their way out and onto different pieces of paper, and hopefully will be in y'all's hands soon.
And that sounds very interesting. I actually like the premise of that one. Of course, demon, so that one sounds very cool to me. And Joseph Bruno said, "Small World is appropriate." I agree,
right?
But for trademark's sake, he cannot put that in there.
No. We won't do that. We'll change it up a little bit. It's a tiny planet or something. I've said it twice now. That's the way to go. So
that sounds interesting because what does the devil do whenever he has a bad day? That's interesting. That's you always hear about what he's doing to cause bad days or whatever, but if he actually has a day off and it becomes a bad day, that could be fun.
Yeah. And actually, I'm not a religious person. Don't do the church thing, whatever. So I've got some ideas for this that are really going to make me very unpopular with some of my family members. But that's okay. It's okay. we're gonna make God out to not be the greatest guy that they all think he is, you know. So it should be pretty interesting. But I'm not gonna get into that because that's religious, and we're gonna steer clear of that, like politics. So,
Very true. Very true.
but when the book comes out, you want to check it out because it'll be a fun read.
Well, definitely save me a copy to the side, signed, please, and I will definitely be getting that from you.
Sign it, man.
Well, Tony, we've had a blast having you on here this evening, had a lot of information go through here and been able to learn a lot more about you and what you do. And we have your website, of course, it's available. If you'll go ahead and give us a last audible shout out on where we can find you and what you got coming at us here very soon. And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on here. This has been fun. You can find me. It's real easy to find Tony. It's Tony Kordos Inking. You type that into Instagram, boom, I pop up. You type it into Facebook, boom, I pop up. Add a .com at the end, boom, I pop up. So all you got to remember is Tony Kordos Inking, and there you go. I'm super easy to find. If you can't find me, get a hold of Phil. Phil can find me. So there you go. You know how to get him. As for coming up, like I said, I'm like a lot of these other guys here. I'm hoping cons come back. I have the Tampa Bay convention. They said they're going to be on. So I have a table. I will be there. And if that convention's on, I'll be there. It's July 10th through 12th down here in Tampa, where I'm from. So, if you're in the area and you're not scared of the COVID, come on out, BS with me a little bit, buy some art from people, meet some artists, whatnot. And like I said, I'll be working on the Grim Reaper bubble book, and I'll be working on the card set, and we'll get some new stuff out to you guys soon. Got to keep your appetites wet for more, right?
Yes, absolutely. Very cool. Definitely looking forward to that. And actually, I'll probably be reaching out to you to get you on as a future guest here coming up because I think I've got a panel of inkers that I'm getting together. So I wanted to see if maybe you'd be interested in that. We could talk about that later.
Cool.
But yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool to have a panel of inkers up here to go ahead and bounce some ideas and talk about some experiences.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, I've had a great evening. I hope you have as well. And I'm going to go ahead and push you back here to backstage for right now. I'm going to do my closing statements. But like I said, if you want to stay back there afterwards, you're more than welcome to.
Go.
And I will see you next time. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. So we had Tony Kordos up here. We had a great time with him, learned a lot more about what he's doing. He's got some amazing works that are coming up. Definitely looking forward to that book with the death bubbles. That just sounds really cool. It's a whole different concept that I don't think I've ever heard of with anybody else having. So that's really looking forward to that. Now, I always have a closing statement. Tonight is no different than that. I never script it. I never write it down. And it goes along with my guest on what they're saying and all. And tonight it's about, what are you willing to do on a dare? Now, I know it's probably the wrong audience to ask that out loud, and I know there's going to be some comments that are going to be following from that one, but before you get too involved in that, let me go ahead and clarify. What are you willing to do on a dare? Because Tony was dared, hey, if you think you can do anything on this, do it. Why don't you go ahead and try it? So he stepped out of his wheelhouse and did something out of his normal to go ahead and achieve this dare. And now he is where he is now. So my question is anybody that's out there, what have you been dared to do lately? What have you been dared to do that you're scared to do? What have you had put in front of you that you should have done a dare on? So maybe it's time to go ahead and look at it as, hey, it's time to take it up on that dare. So I dare you to look in the mirror and see what you've been dared and see if you've been scared or you're ready to be dared. Say that a few times fast. All right. Demon Phil, Comics in More, New Jersey. You already know. Keep it indie, y'all.